Hey there, so I'm just checking some technical stuff here in some projects that I've been working on about trying to inject some fresh transitional ideas. So today I'm talking about this obvious problem, if you're not immediately familiar with the idea of what a cliche transition is, then you will be soon. And better yet, you'll have some ideas. I'm hoping I can convey some ideas, some helpful ideas on how to get past this, right? So in a lot of different styles of music, I do a lot of production music, but in electronic music, which I think sort of really popularized the idea and it became kind of part of pop music production, are like white noise risers, things like that, sort of a shh, sound that functions as a transition. Now, in the sort of more traditional realm of bands recording music in studios, maybe a crescendo on an electric guitar, or there were elements that musicians and singers would inject into a performance in order to create anticipation into the next section. Maybe it's a snare, like a snare roll, but just da, 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 with a crescendoing volume, right? So the volume's coming up, the loudness up, and as that builds, it creates some motion into the next part of the track or the song or whatever you're working on. And this, in electronic music, you use sound effects that would function the same way. In production music, a lot of production music, because it's mostly made in a box, in a computer, on a DAW, and so it's kind of helpful in a lot of the tools of the digital realm. But there are some things that maybe are a little less common, but that can elevate your music, whether you're making electronic music, or you're making production music. And I wanted to talk about some of those ideas here. So here's a Cubase. Take myself off the camera and just done. Here's a sample, and I have really not manipulated the audio too much, but I'm using automation. So I'm automating, and I'm using delay, and I am also using volume gating or volume automation so that functions like a gate. So let me show you kind of what I mean, and you can hopefully take these ideas into your next production. So what I've got, I'm going to go ahead and just turn off my okay, let's see here. I think I've got this all happening. You can see this happening over here. I'm going to actually turn off my volume automation, because I'm going to explain that in just a second. So let me just go ahead and reset that. Okay, so this is just a really basic one. I pulled this from a sample library I got from Land, and they got a lot of great stuff that I like to use when I'm doing like cinematic scoring and I want one shots or impacts, things like that. So I often go to these because less known sample libraries. It's not samples that came with base, so they're a little less used, and maybe I'm hoping with a. I created this and I reversed it. Is played forward. The bottom clip here is played backwards. And I kind of mix them. And added this replica. So we've got this sample, this shot. I added replica, which is basically like a delay module. Let me see what that is and why we're not. Must be a monitor somewhere anyway. It's a delay module. And you can really hear the changes in there. Now, the little laser fiction, it might be a cool effect using it. The replica, I could bring up the, let me see if I bring up another, if it'll, yes, not finding it, which is weird. There it is. Let me bring it over here. Sorry about that. So the cool thing about replica, this is a Native Instruments module or effect. Flanger and filter effect on it. So I'm using the phaser, and that's kind of adding that like watery sound. So it's not just doing delay. If I were to turn this off, you can hear the delay by itself. So pretty standard. It's just an 8th bass delay. I do have a fair amount of, I'm using full mix, and I've got a fair amount of feedback here. But when I put this phaser, a unique delay module, it adds that kind of watery texture in there that I'm liking, right? So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to also add this filter. So the filter looks like this. It's set very low. This is a cube, is called Morph, that a low pass filter kind of inverse of each other. And you can see my two. But if I go ahead and read this, you can hear that I get a pretty interesting riser effect, and really influenced by these two effects. So I'm making delay with that phaser effect, and then this filter as well. And the filter is basically opening up, favoring high frequencies over low frequencies as the riser plays through. And it's not going to be a sound that I'm going to get from kind of a drag and drop one shot or something like that. It gives me a little bit of room for manipulation too, automation, right? So I can not necessarily have that automation be on like a sharp ramp, but kind of logarithmic curve up, or even goes up and down. You know, I can manipulate it and play with it. It becomes something I can copy it around in my DAW and Cubase. When you drag it, it takes the automation with it, so I can just copy it over to another part of my track, and the whole effect survives. I can do a one shot and use it, but it winds up being my own sound. It's really flexible. It's not like some kind of nightmare set up in a synthesizer with, you know, a bunch of tricky details. To do it this way, using some automation and some fun effects. Phaser, flangers, filtering are my number one to go to. Delay is awesome. You know, you could add a ping pong effect, stereo delay. So looking for resonance. There's a drive plugin that comes from Native Instruments that can create like really squealing, kind of like guitar feedback type resonance, which can also be used to really great effect here. Is another awesome thing you can use to create a that's unique, that you own. It's your, that's what. How do we cliches? Well, we still need these transitions, but can more. This is one of the ways that I complement automation curves with effects. One last thing that I'll show, just because it is also something is volume automation. What this volume automation here, it's basically by throwing and dropping the fader. So you'll see the fader over here go up and down. I'm starting with like an 8th bass pattern and switching to a 16th bass pattern. And that way it's a little bit like this machine gun drum fill that you get in a lot of EDM. You get the 8ths by the 16ths, maybe followed by 30 seconds, maybe followed by a drop. You know, you could do a thing too where 16ths maybe like half a bar, 30 seconds would drop to a complete like mute effect, but you can automate it and see what's happening in automation, and then you get that effect. And when you combine the gating automation, this volume automation, with the automation on my filter, with the replica over here that has the phase built into the delay, you get something that is totally unique. And I would say that there's kind of 3 requirements that I would recommend you look for when you're designing your own transition. The first is that it's original, but still, you know, suits the purpose. You definitely want it to be on, but try and original, not and dropping one shots and that sort of thing. Maybe like a real common thing I used to do. A lot of people do. You know, you get a cymbal hit, you reverse it. It works really well, right? But maybe, you know, even if you are using one shots like that, layer them up, filter them a little, and totally reinvent the wheel. But